All right. Welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. Welcome in, Frankie. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, John. Whoa. Look at the background. What's happening here, man? No swords, no shield, no nothing.
Let me give you, there we go. Let me give it time to adjust here. I am coming to you live from Las Vegas. You know, I thought that is very appropriate given some of the news we've gotten over the past couple of days. But yes, I'm here in Las Vegas for the SEMA car show. Having a great time. Got to see a little bit of the Sphere. Got to see Allegiant Stadium. It's super badass, man. Really, really cool.
That's sick.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. Please don't forget to follow us on social media. Great follow on Instagram at Frankly Fantasy Football. I know you all listen to the audio. Please watch the video as well. Hopefully I don't have too many internet connections here in this hotel, but we'll see what we can do, man. We'll give you guys everything you need for this week. Welcome to the show today. We've got a great show. Today, we're going to dabble into a little bit of news here. We got a couple things that just happened. We're going to do our starts, sits, our smash and pass, and our hit it and quit it, baby. But let's get into a few things real quick, Frankie, with some news here real quick.
The season's out. Your listeners don't expect flip out.
News and notes.
Okay, it's fitting that I'm in Las Vegas. Let's talk about some of the shit show happening with the Raiders. Oh, yeah. Let me go ahead and
have to
do that twice. I always do that. I do it every Friday. Every time we do this episode, I forget to hit the loop button, man. I'm a big dumb animal. Anyway, the Raiders, they're raping and pillaging this team right now, man. Fire Josh McDaniels, who has not proven to be a great head coach. They fired their GM. And let's just complete the trifecta here with the parlay, and they're benching Jimmy G and bringing out Aiden O'Connell. So, Frankie, give us a little bit of breakdown. What in the fuck are we doing with this Raiders team?
I mean, John, it is going to be completely revamped. We have no idea what we're going to be looking at. The only maybe piece that I would honestly consider rolling out there for this week is Davante. And Davante laid an absolute shitbag, had a shitbag week, laid an egg, for less than 1 point or less than 2 points, should I say? Just brutal, man. So really, this is going to be fascinating to see what happens. And with the hiring, so from a head coach perspective, John, they hired Antonio Pierce, ex-NFL guys rally around him. Apparently he likes touching them. Total joke. He said that in the interview, whatever. Everybody knew what he meant. Get off his back. But this could be really interesting because maybe the defense shows up in big ways. They have big players. Maybe they start showing up. Maybe the offense is feeding off this new energy, and maybe Davante Adams literally ends up getting 15 targets. He might have 3 receptions of them, but maybe he ends up getting 15 targets. John, this is going to be fascinating to see what happens.
I think that Davante Adams will be the squeakiest of wheels that you have ever seen in your life. I do think Davante Adams gets fed heavily.
Yeah.
Aiden O'Connell's going to lean on him. Fire Davante Adams up. I mean, you saw how pissed off he was. Squeakiest of wheels this week, guys. He's going to be a monster. I can feel it. All right, let's get to something else here. Look at the trades. Okay, we all get excited. We do a fantasy football podcast. All the experts. We all want to see splash trades in the NFL. Yeah, a little letdown, a little disappointing. I think we all had, a little boner from the CMC trade last year, mid-season, But, not too much here. But as far as fantasy relevance, a lot of defensive players. So a lot of defenses got bolstered. 49ers.
Chase Young.
Philly. I mean, there's the rich just got a little bit richer this year. They know the path to the Super Bowl is going to be through an amazing defense. They made those moves, man. It was great. But really, the only fantasy relevance that we had as far as trades went, Donovan Peoples-Jones, DPJ, traded to the Detroit Lions. I'm going to tee it up for you here, Frank. I want to get your opinion on this. It seems as if Jameson Williams, the shiny new car that they were looking to pull out and get going, has really struggled to get going. He has not been good. Are they bringing in DPJ to play a significant role in this offense?
I think so. I absolutely think so. They got him for a really good price. Didn't have to give up much for him. A super late round pick. But more than anything, John, DPJ is a proven asset. We've seen him ball out last year. He almost had 1,000 yards. And in the punt return game, he's phenomenal at returning. So I really think in the right system, Ben Johnson's system, the OC for that of Detroit, this could be very, very fruitful for both of them because we've seen what Khalif Raymond has done. We've seen what Josh Reynolds has done, right? Outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, they really haven't had much besides Sam Laporta. And so now you bring in a guy that could legitimately walk in after a few weeks and be your receiver too, legitimately. So, I mean, I'm talking, totally throw Josh Reynolds to the third overall receiver, and then really just bring in Jamison Williams as the fourth guy or a downfield threat at this point in time. So what it does is it gives them as an offense a super high floor, and they don't need to constantly have these super high ceiling guys that can take take the ball downfield very far. That's why I like this for DPJ and for the Detroit Lions. I think it's a really smart move by these guys.
I do too. You've got, Amon-Ra is going to run a lot of short routes, get in space. DPJ is really kind of that mid-tier route runner, those kind of deep posts and those deep outs. And I think that's an area that the Lions really needed to address. And I think it was a perfect fit. I do think he's going to have, it may take a couple of weeks here for him to continue to get more and more snaps and establish himself. But I think DPJ is going to be a guy that you can flex on a week-to-week basis, the way this offense has been trucking.
John, a good comparable to this, I really see this being very similar to that of a Curtis Samuel on Washington, right? Maybe not the receiver one, maybe not necessarily a super lock of receiver two, but he's flirting with that receiver two, receiver three line on that prospective team. Obviously, Curtis Samuel with Jahan Dotson, things like that. But that's the level of caliber that I could see him walking into and being, which is very serviceable player. So I'm really excited to see what DPJ does. Appreciate all the effort, brother. He put out some great film last year. We all love him in Cleveland.
Yes, we do. All right, the other fantasy relevant move here made was Josh Dobbs, quarterback, was with the Arizona Cardinals, and he was traded to the Minnesota Vikings. And you and I on the last episode said, hey, they put Josh Dobbs on the bench. They weren't starting him. They're trading his ass. Yep. And sure enough, of course they did. They got Kyler Murray coming back soon. So it was a really good move for the Arizona Cardinals. What does this do? Talk to me about Minnesota. What is adding Josh Dobbs? Now, Josh Dobbs is not starting this week. Right. It is going to be Jaron Warren, like we talked about.
Jaron Hall.
Jaron Hall, like we talked about, rookie. Don't expect much this week out of the rookie coming in. I'm starting the Atlanta Falcons defense everywhere I can. They're
fire them up
to be fire them up, baby. Yes, defensive start of the week. But what does this do to the offense once Josh Dobbs does get established?
Saves the offense. That's what this move did. That's why they moved so quickly. Like we talked about the potential trade with Jameis, in the previous episode and talked about what the Vikings are going to do. This gave them the opportunity to potentially re-sign Kirk Cousins. Everything coming out is actually saying like how much Kirk meant to this team, which a lot of people don't see. They just see the play. And by the way, Kirk's play has almost been, dare I say, flawless this year. Second in passing yards. He was top 7 in touchdowns. I mean, just absolutely dominant in what he's been able to do even without JJ. And so now what this move did is it still gives Jordan Addison a nice floor, and it gives KJ Osborne even a nice floor. It helps TJ Hawkinson. We've seen Josh Dobbs aid Marquise Brown and make him a very viable fantasy football player. Like he's throwing the ball down the field to him. And so I think that this is a perfect thing that the Vikings needed to do, because you're not overly committing to somebody. You leave the door open for Kirk if he comes back, and you have the ability to move on from them if Kirk doesn't, if something happens in the recovery process and it doesn't work out for Kirk being on a contract year, and you're not committed to Josh Dobbs. Brilliant fucking move by the Vikings, in my personal opinion.
Yep, I agree with you 100%, man. All right, let's get into our hit it and quit it, baby.
Gotta love that.
All right. I love that. Love me some Funkadelic to start the week here. End the week, actually. Yeah. All right. So we've got week 9 here, guys. We are definitely officially halfway through the season. I can't even believe it's week 9 right now. Week 9 buys we've got. We got a couple coming up here. We talked about the Lions. Lions are going to be on bye. 49ers on bye. Jaguars on bye. And the Broncos on bye. Okay. Now, Frankie, when we're looking at, we've got our 2 tiers here. So when we're looking at like 12 to 16 team leagues, some of the deeper leagues, who are the guys that are your starts of the week this week, man? Who you smashing?
John, I am smashing. So we're looking at tier 1, which is the 12 to 16 man leagues, guys. We're looking for the deeper leagues right now. First guy that I am smashing is that of Josh Downs. This rookie for that of Indianapolis Colts continues to shine. And my face is smiling so much because I have him and I love him. Okay. Selfishly speaking, what he has done, guys, in the last 4 weeks alone, he has had 12.7 points in FPPR, 10.6 points, 23 points, and 10.7 points. In deep leagues, he is a great option in half PPR or even full PPR, especially going against that of the Carolina Panthers at Carolina. This is a very good matchup, knowing that Michael Pittman's going to draw the top coverage, leaving Josh Downs open for all of these beautiful crossing plays that Gardner Minshew loves throwing to him. Last week alone, John, he had 9 targets, caught 7 of them for 72 yards. He is absolutely dominating in the last 4 weeks as a rookie. Fire him up against this defense. I'm rocking with it. Josh Downs, baby.
I love it. The last 4 weeks, let's look at it. 6 targets, 8 targets, 6 targets, 9 targets. Yeah, love that, man. Love it. Who else you got, man?
Hey, I'm going to go back into the fire with some tight ends, John. Ooh, it gets me all sauced up, let me tell you. I'm talking Dalton Kincaid, baby. We're in Dalton's madness right now with the Buffalo Bills. Since that of Dawson Knox getting hurt, and where nobody was hoping for Dawson Knox to get hurt. Let me be very clear, but he did. He has had 11 points and 15 points. He had 7 targets last week alone, guys, and they're walking into that of the Cincinnati Bengals, who are healthy, who are firing on all cylinders, and look like a damn good team. Joe Burrow is back, which means game script is huge here. So I love Dalton Kincaid this week at Cincinnati and what I think could be an absolute epic showdown between Josh Allen and that of Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and the Buffalo defense has been banged up over the past few weeks. I mean, you can score on this team, and they're going to have to keep up because the Buffalo offense is playing pretty well. So them throwing the ball and needing to throw the ball, they like Dalton Kincaid. You know, you're consolidating all of those tight ends. They run a lot of double tight end. You're consolidating that into one guy, and that's Dalton Kincaid. Last 2 weeks since the bye, or I'm sorry, since week 7, week 8, eight catches on 8 targets, 5 catches on 7 targets. You know,
awesome.
Tight ends getting you 8 targets. You got to keep riding in the flames, baby. I love it.
John, I'm going to switch gears here, and I'm going to go running back for my next start, again, in deeper leagues, guys. And this one is a little bit finicky. And I say that because if he's healthy, you start him. If not, you go a different direction. And I'm talking Jerome Ford for the Cleveland Browns against that of the Arizona Cardinals. The reason being, guys, is because outside of last week, again, he was banged up, right, against that of the Seattle Seahawks. Jerome Ford has had, besides last week, 5 weeks prior, he's had 4 weeks double digits in a row, straight up in a row. That's huge. And so I really think against this Arizona defense, knowing PJ Walker is going to be starting again, or maybe it's DTR, it's looking like PJ Walker, they're going to rely on the run game once more. It's going to be a tandem between that of Kareem Hunt and that of Jerome Ford, assuming that he's healthy. So if he is healthy, fire him up at home against a team that's traveling across the country and already is decimated on defense.
I read some articles today, and a lot of analysts are thinking Pierre Strong is going to be the guy to play here. And they, just not loving Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford is the starting running back.
Very
He
much so.
surprisingly was active last week. He should not have been. He had a high ankle strain, for fuck's sake. I mean, that's a couple of week recovery typically. So that's why he didn't get the play. A lot of people think they're shifting to Pierre Strong and Kareem Hunt. They're doing that because he was banged up. He's just not healthy yet. So if Jerome Ford is healthy, absolutely. Against this Arizona Cardinals defense, you definitely can run the ball.
Definitely.
So Ford's a great start, man. Love it.
John, the last start in the tier 1, 12 to 16 man leagues, I'm going to do something that's really kind of out there. And it's not based on the stats, it's based on gut. I'm rolling with Zack Moss. I understand, right? Zack Moss, running back for the Indianapolis Colts, or should I say the backup there. The reason being is because they are still feeding Zack Moss. He is still the number 4 running back in all of fantasy football right now and have PPR. Okay. Last week alone, he had 66 rushing yards on 11 carries. He ended up having 8 receiving yards on 1 reception, and he had a touchdown as well. This is now week 3 with Jonathan Taylor back. And so what we're seeing is, yes, Jonathan Taylor is definitely the guy, but Zack Moss is playing at an unbelievable level to the where it's impossible to ignore at this point in time. And so, guys, over the last few weeks, what he has done, last week alone against that of the New Orleans Saints, I just told you his stats, he had 15 fantasy points against the Saints as a backup. That is damn good. Then Cleveland, really tough sledding, right? But still had 7 points. Then Jacksonville, 15. Tennessee, 35. The Rams, 9. Baltimore, 22, right? This dude is performing at a very high level. I think it's hard to ignore in a super deep league with all of these bye weeks, guys. If you got to fire up Zack Moss, I'm actually doing it as well. Sometimes you need to ride in the flames, and I'm riding with him.
I do like that a lot, Frankie. I mean, yes, take advantage of the fact that I think they're trying to save Jonathan Taylor as much as possible to see if they can make a playoff run. It's really smart. Take advantage of that, though. His snap count went down a little bit last week. It's pretty much been 50-50, exactly 50-50 since Jonathan Taylor came back. Last week, it went down to about 39% snaps. That's okay. That's okay. I still think there's a lot of production here. You're talking about a Carolina defense that is not very stingy against the run. It is a potential of a game that they could be ahead, which, gives Zack Moss kind of mop-up duty in the fourth quarter. So I do like that, man. Situationally, I think it's a really good call.
John, we're going to shift gears. We're going to go tier 2 now, man. We're going to go 8-10 man league. Who should we be firing up? Who are we starting? The first one is going to be Scary Terry. Scary Terry's back, baby, against that of the New England Patriots. Guys, what Scary Terry has done has been, what he's done the last 3 weeks has been awesome. He's had double-digit weeks in every single week against 2 very good defenses, and that of at Atlanta and against the Philadelphia Eagles. The reason why I like Scary Terry is strictly because of the volume from that of Sam Howell. On top of it, the Commanders just lost their top 2 defensive players. So Chase Young and Montez Sweat are gone. So now they're probably going to be either behind or playing right in line with that of New England. And so they're going to have to rely on Sam Howell even more. And so for me, man, I like the volume play. I like Scary Terry this week. Back-to-back weeks, double digits. I'm going to go back to the basics here and fire up Scary Terry.
I'm so pissed off that I dropped Jahan Dotson, but based on everything that was happening, you could not predict this, that they were just going to have a fire sale on their defense. You're absolutely right. The game script is going to show a ton of throwing, I think, with this team. And Sam Howell has really been playing well, man. I mean, hell, He was on the cover of this week's episode earlier. I mean, he's just been fantastic. He was the QB1 last week, I love that. I think Terry McLaurin is a trade candidate. Try to go get him, because I do think you're right. Based on the situation, I think he's going to see a ton of targets. And Jahan Dotson, if he's out there, which he might be on your waiver wire, pick him up and stash him, because I think he may have a little bit of a comeback as well.
Love it. Love it. John, we're going to go back to the Jets, man. Crazy, right? Crazy. But I'm going with Garrett Wilson. If you are in an 8 and 10 man league and you're sitting there staring at Garrett Wilson or Josh Jacobs or, multiple others, right, that you might be considered, T. Higgins, right, somebody like that, I'm riding in the flames with Garrett Wilson, guys. The reason being is because little fucking Mormon kid is coming to play, baby. He's really stepped up shockingly. I mean, guys, Garrett Wilson in the last 2 weeks alone against that of Philly and against that of the Giants has over double-digit points in half PPR. In addition, last week alone, here's why I'm firing him up this week. 13 targets. 13 targets to Garrett Wilson in a game that was lockstep. It was good game script. It wasn't phenomenal game script. It's not like they're down and they're having to go crazy. He was the absolute focal point other than that of Breece Hall. And so for me, man, knowing that he had 100 yards on 13 targets and he caught 7 of them going into a week against that of the Los Angeles Chargers, who are coming to the Jets, making that long ass trip, playing against an excellent defense in the Jets. And on top of it, the Chargers defense sucks. They suck. Let's call it what it is. They're back half the league, back fourth of the league. They're 28th overall. I think this is a perfect week for a signature win for that of Zach Wilson, beating Justin Herbert and seeing Garrett Wilson ball out. So for me, man, I'm firing up Garrett Wilson if you have him this week.
His target share is insane. I think the coaches said, listen, don't go through your progressions. Don't do your reads. Get the ball in the hands of the most talented players on the team. That's Breece Hall. That's Garrett Wilson. And with that many targets, it seems like they're doing that. So, hey, Zach Wilson, baby, get your shit together this week.
3 times a week I have unprotected sex with your mother.
Yeah, all right. I love it, man. Who else you got, babe?
John, we're going to roll with Amari Cooper. This one's a little bit stressful. This is a stressful pick. But the reason why I like Cooper is strictly because of the matchup. In addition, I don't necessarily see us potentially running away. I think Cleveland Browns are -8 at this point in time. I don't think that it's going to be -8. I think it could be a little bit closer than that, if I'm being completely honest with you, with PJ Walker at the helm and knowing that our defense is going to have to do defensive things. But because of that, I think that Amari Cooper, with having 11 targets the prior week or in last week, 8 targets against that of Indiana, 8 targets against that of San Francisco, this is going to break. This is going to happen. Last week alone, Cooper ended up saving that week with 89 yards on 6 receptions from 11 targets, as I mentioned. So he had almost 12 fantasy points in half PPR. And again, against San Francisco, he had 13 points in half PPR. So what I'm saying is yes, this is definitely more of a risky pick. However, due to the matchup and due to the landscape of what's happening between Arizona and that of the Cleveland Browns, I think that with the market or the target share that he's getting could be very interesting firing him up.
And DPJ is not on the team anymore. We're just going to be funneling more targets to Amari Cooper. In order for them to actually hit that spread, it has to come from Amari Cooper. We've got backup running backs. We've got backup quarterbacks. Amari Cooper is going to be the focal point, I think, of this game until they run away with it a little bit, and then you'll see the running game in the fourth quarter. But I think Amari gets his this week.
John, the last guy that I'm firing up, and this is a big one, is Michael Pittman Jr. Holy shit, brother. This guy has been balling the last 3 weeks. Let me tell you something. Last week alone against the New Orleans Saints with Marshawn Lattimore draped all over him, okay? He had 13 targets, caught 8 of them for 40 yards and a touchdown. Touchdown saved him, no doubt. But 13 targets is incredible. On top of that, John, you look at what happened against that of Cleveland. Cleveland did an excellent job of locking him up. He only had 5 targets and caught 2 balls. However, broke a tackle and went to the house on one. 83 yards and a touchdown. And then against Jacksonville, right? So 3 games ago, 14 targets, 9 receptions, 109 yards. This dude is being fed by Gardner Minshew, and knowing that they're playing at Carolina. I know I just talked about, fire up Josh Downs. I'm also firing up that of Michael Pittman Jr., going for 4 weeks in a row of double-digit points, man. Love it.
He is officially the wide receiver 12 right now in half PPR. and that's very, very surprising. So yes, he's on the cutting edge of being a wide receiver one for your team. That's fantastic. I see a pattern here, Frankie. You seems like you're picking on the Carolina Panthers D and the Arizona Cardinals D in your starts and sits, man.
Never. It's easy when your defense sucks. Let me tell you. It's easier, should I say? It's not necessarily easy.
There you go. Who are you not starting this week? Who do you not like, man?
So, John, first and foremost, I am going to lump two in together here, and it is KJ Osborne and Alexander Mattison. Okay. The reason for this is because, number one, Kirk Cousins is not there. Josh Dobbs will not play. Okay. That's first and foremost. They're firing up a rookie against a good defense, not prolific, not terrible, way better than average, a good defense at Atlanta. Don't like this matchup whatsoever, especially for that of KJ Osborne. And in addition, for Mattison, it's not as high of a sit for me as what it is for KJ Osborne. However, I don't like it because Cam Akers is now taking away quite a bit from that of Alexander Mattison. So you lose Kirk. I really would shy away from these guys for this week.
Another thing to shout out here, didn't put it in the news, and I should have, but Desmond Ridder is being benched for the Atlanta Falcons. And we've got Taylor Heineke coming on. I know you're a huge Taylor Heineke guy. You loved him on your teams. The guy can sling the ball. He's going to throw the ball a lot here, man. But I think that what that's going to do is it's really going to hurt the Minnesota Vikings. Their defense is not good at all.
No.
And I think that Taylor Heineke is going to be able to carve them up. So I think that game script will really hurt Alexander Mattison.
Totally agree, man. John, the next guy that I got to sit, and it's nothing because I don't like him or anything like that. I actually love this guy, and it's got to be D'Onta Foreman. John, the reason being is because with Rochon Johnson coming back, right? He came back down to earth last week, and he only had, I got to even pull this up. I want to say he had 4 points. He did. He only had 4 fantasy points in half PPR. You're playing against that of New Orleans. The Bears right now are kind of in shambles. Justin Fields is not planning on potentially playing again. It's still up in the air. It's looking like he's going to be out again. This is just not a good recipe going against a top defense in the NFL. Therefore, I am benching and staying away and sitting on that of D'Onta Foreman.
Yeah, it's one we got right, and we saw the tea leaves, man, with Foreman. He scores 3 touchdowns, and then he was on our sits last week as well. And everybody's like, really? He just scored 3 touchdowns. You're sitting Foreman? Yes, we're sitting Foreman. Look what happened early in the season. They had starters with Khalil Herbert and Rochon Johnson. And who was the third guy they had over there? I can't remember who it was. Anyway, that was the 1, 2, and 3, and then they had D'Onta Foreman as a healthy scratch. Rochon Johnson's healthy. He's going to be in there. He's a pass-catching running back. He's going to get some goal line work as well. They like him. So I don't think we're seeing him eat into. When D'Onta Foreman's by himself, yes, he gets all of the work. He's a volume running back. He needs 20 carries to get to that point. But if you looked at that game that he had that was really good, he did have those 3 touchdowns, but his yards per carry wasn't great. He didn't do very much actually between the 20s either. So yeah, I'm with you 100%. Don't look at that 3 touchdown game and get, I got to start him. You have to start. No, you don't. Let me ask you this though. Can you start Rochon Johnson?
John, for me, man, I think I'm staying away from that backfield this week, and it's strictly because of the matchup. I don't like New Orleans is tough. New Orleans is tough across the board. I mean, they were even, really locking up some of the top, better backs in the NFL. And so for me, man, I'm staying away this week, but don't be surprised if Rochon Johnson ends up outperforming D'Onta Foreman. But I wouldn't say that it's going to be a guy that I'm necessarily starting, but necessarily not sitting.
Yeah, I think if you're in a desperate situation, you've got some buys here. If you had Jahmyr Gibbs or CMC or ETN, Javonte Williams, we've got some running backs that have been playing very well that are on bye this week. If you had to start Rochon Johnson, I think you could because the team will be down. He will be the pass catching running back, and they may need him to try to make a comeback in this game. I don't love it, and I'm not predicting he's going to have a good game, but I think if you're desperate, you can play Rochon Johnson.
John, the last sit for me is a tough one, and it's Damian Pierce against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Unfortunately, this has not been a good year for Damian Pierce. He's the number 34 overall running back in half PPR. Over the last 3 weeks alone, he's had 4.6 points, 3.4 points, and 8.7 points. And by the way, one of those defenses, the 3.4 points, was against that of the New Orleans Saints. And so, John, yes, he has played Atlanta, the Saints, and the Carolina Panthers, Carolina not being super great. But the problem is Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary started eating into his workload, and Damian Pierce is now banged up. And so now you start mixing all this together, along with CJ Stroud throwing the ball very well. And so it's actually taking away from the running game as a whole. Usually you would think that would open up the running game a bit. They'd have a little bit more success. The reality, it's kind of been the opposite. And really, if I'm looking at this, Damian Pierce hasn't had a double-digit week since that of week 4, John. And the only other double-digit week that he had in fantasy points was week 3. Outside of week 3 and 4, he has not had a double-digit fantasy point week again. And so for me, man, this is concerning. This is very concerning for a team that actually isn't 100% out of the playoff hunt. And so I definitely would recommend sitting that of Damian Pierce this week, seeing what happens. He's a little banged up, not the greatest matchup, unfortunately.
All right, man. I love it. Anything else you want to bring up with these starts and sits and the smash and pass?
Not today. You guys, hey, enjoy this. Continue to monitor that of Jerome Ford, that of Damian Pierce if you have them, and even that of a few of these other guys like Zack Moss and some of these, because if something happens here, make adjustments, right? Make adjustments quickly, get on the waiver wire, start picking up a few people, and stay active, guys. Keep trading, keep getting better, keep strategizing for your team. We're in the push now, mid-season, get into playoff time.
That's right. That's right. And don't forget, we've got a game in Frankfurt, Germany this weekend with the Miami Dolphins and the Kansas City Chiefs. That'll be really, really exciting. So make sure your lineups are in, guys. Get up early enough before that 9:30 a.m. Eastern time kickoff. Make sure you've got everybody in. There's a lot of injuries out there, a lot of hamstrings and ankles. Make sure you make plans for that. All right, guys. All right, everybody. Don't forget to follow us on social media, on Instagram at Frankly Fantasy Football, and please follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube. It's been growing. We really want to get, what do we have? We've got a couple of hundred subscribers now. Let's get us to that 500 mark by the end of the season. That's my goal, man. Come on, guys. Let's go. All right, everyone. Have a great week. Have some fun. And kick some damn ass this week. May the fantasy gods smile upon you. Bye.